Welcome to Let's Play Super Mario Brothers! Now, since I played Mario 3 and Mario 2, I figured might as well go all the way and play them out of order. So we'll finish this by playing Mario 1 and then we'll move on to something different. So let's begin. Now, I don't possibly know what I could say about Mario Brothers that hasn't been said a million times, but just in case you were living under a rock in the last few years, I might as well introduce the game just a little bit. Super Mario Brothers came out in 1985 worldwide. However, here in Canada, the game came out just a bit later. It might have been difficult to find in Quebec. We were always kind of behind on these things. So, my first introduction to this game was in, I guess, 1989 or 1990. The reason why I got to play this game was actually that my parents had the console when I was a kid. They didn't get it for me, they had it before. If I remember correctly, my parents' friend had been on a trip to the US, and when they came back, they brought back the NES. So that was the first time my parents got to see a Nintendo. My parents liked it so much that they considered getting one, but it was almost impossible to find in Quebec at the time. So, what happened was that when my mother got pregnant, she had a condition, a special condition, which I won't go into the details, that prevented her from going to work. So most of the time she was either at home or straight up bedridden, which was extremely boring for her. And to make up for that, what my father did was that to surprise her, he went to go and buy an NES. She went shopping. I am in my hometown, and when she got back home, he had hooked up the console to surprise her. That was the Nintendo with Super Mario Bros. 1, Duck Hunt, and that running game with the carpet, which I don't remember the name of, actually. Here in Quebec at the time, the package deal you could get for the NES was either that one or the one that just had Duck Hunt. The one with Rob actually came much later. I didn't know anyone as a kid who had Rob, so I don't know how rare that was. I'd have to look into it. But anyway, to get back to my story, my mother started to play Mario 1 in her free time while she was at home. And, well, let's just say she had a lot of free time on her hands because she became extremely good at the game, mastering stuff like the infinite one-up trick that I never was able to pull off. To me, it's like this trick is something that only mothers can do. That's how it always felt. I don't think any of my friends know how to do that trick, which is pretty ironic considering how much time we spent playing the game. But yeah, my mother played that while she was pregnant with me, and I don't know if I heard the music of the game or something as I was being conceived, or I don't know, as I grew up, but it must have stuck with me because this game is still a big part of my life to this day. It's the very first game I saw. When I was a kid, I would usually just watch my mother play the game and always hope to see her make it to the end. When she used the warps, she'd usually make it to the end, but going through the entire game took so much time that she did it very rarely. Actually, I think the very first few times I saw the game, we always used the warp. So seeing the full thing was kind of a new thing to me. When I finally started playing it, I'd watched her do it so many times I was expecting to be just as good as her when I played it the first time. But reality is not that kind. It may look like a very simple game to learn, but when it's the very first video game you play, it's not that easy. I think pretty much everyone has died to that very first Goomba. In a way, I guess that could make that Goomba Bowser's most efficient minion. He must have the highest kill count out of all the enemies in all Mario games together. Think he should get a promotion for that? But anyway, I began to play it a lot, to a point where I guess it kind of became my favorite activity. I spent so much time playing this game and trying to master it. Maybe to impress my parents and show them that I was able to play it too. The cartridge we had also had Duck Hunt and that racing game, though I barely ever played these two. The running game was a pain, and it wasn't exactly responsive, and not that fun, to be honest. There's only so much fun you can get out of running on a small carpet to see your pixelated character jump hurdles on the screen. And the Duck Hunt one was mostly my dad's favorite game. It's very rare that my dad played Mario, like, I guess I could count on the fingers of one hand how many times I saw him play Mario. And that's just Mario 1, he never tried the other ones. But Duck Hunt, he was very good at it. We had this setup in the living room where, when we had family over, especially my uncle on my father's side, they'd set up the NES in the middle of the room with the wire going all the way to the TV, and then you'd have the wire of the zapper reaching pretty much all the way to the end of the living room, so you were as far from the TV as you could. That was so my uncle and my dad could play Duck Hunt and be as far from the TV as possible. Because they said that if you were too close to the TV, it was too easy and there was no challenge. So I'd watch them compete. And to be honest, at some point, they'd just lose on purpose because the game just keeps going and going, and they barely ever missed the ducks. So at some point, they just stopped playing. And I would play Mario with my cousins. Eventually, I got the chance to play this game with my friend Timothy, and it became our go-to game. For a while, I mean, we only had Mario 1 and 2, and something about Mario 2 was so weird and different from Mario 1 that I ended up playing Mario 1 the most. Mario 2 was nicer looking, but the fact that enemies didn't die when you jump on them and that mushrooms were so hard to find just made Mario 1 more appealing to me. I find Mario 1 is a lot more fast-paced too. I've never been a fan of vertical levels, and Mario 2 is not lacking in these frickin' vertical levels. Mario 1 is a lot more horizontal and straightforward. I don't think there is a single vertical level in Mario 1. I'm not sure if that's accurate, but I think that developing vertical levels for Nintendo only came after they made Kid Icarus and Metroid. These games were kind of an exercise in programming vertical scrolling levels. And once they mastered it, they used it in Doki Doki Panic, which eventually became Mario 2. Don't quote me on that though. Maybe I should do a bit more research before I say stuff like that. I may give you false information and then you'll go ahead and spread it. And then everyone will be misinformed. It's very easy to say stuff like that. I come from a generation of people who would usually spread that kind of information, and there was no internet when we were kids to verify that stuff. Either someone had told you about it, or you'd read it in a magazine somewhere, and sometimes even these magazines were not that accurate. Let's just say there's a few pieces of information in Nintendo Power that were corrected later. When you couldn't verify your sources, you just took it for granted back then. I guess that goes for pretty much any kind of rumor. Saying stuff like Walt Disney was cryogenically frozen? Is that even the word I'm looking for? All these weird rumors about Michael Jackson or Elvis or all that stuff. Back then it was just so easy to make stuff up because there was no internet. Oh, this is where you're supposed to do the infinite one-up trick. And I missed it again. Yeah. I'm not sure how you're supposed to do this. I guess you're supposed to bounce on the shell and have it trapped between you and that step. But is it supposed to be on the ledge of the step? Is it supposed to be right next to it? I don't get it. Maybe one day. I'll understand how it works. I figured since this is a very short game, why not make it to the end of World 4 in this episode? And the second episode will be the rest of the game from World 5 to 8. I'm not going to do the second playthrough because it's just the same game all over again. The only difference is that all Goombas are replaced by Buzzy Beetles. Not the most exciting New Game Plus in the world. But still, it was a nice addition. It added more length to the game. Back then, games were so short they had to find a way to pad them out to make that purchase worth it. Maybe that's why my parents were not too keen on buying new games, and we ended up only having 2 for the longest time. There was a video store in my hometown where they had Nintendo games. So when I was very little, we'd rent them there. And once that one closed, we'd just go to the next town. It was like a 15-minute drive, and they had a big selection of games. That's where we'd always rent Mario 3. As a kid, I guess my favorite games to rent were Mario 3 and DuckTales on NES. Though we did rent Little Nemo in Slumberland a lot too. Never made it very far in that one. Maybe I'll play it here sometime. I was watching AGDQ last week, and I saw a let's play, a speedrun of Little Nemo in Slumberland, and they made it look so easy. I was almost ashamed with myself. Maybe playing it as an adult would be different. I always liked these gigantic games. DuckTales and Little Nemo were both made by Capcom, and they have these enormous levels where you can go underground and in the sky and explore the whole thing. Capcom were very strong on that back in the day. Especially if you were used playing only games like Mario, playing these felt so different. It was refreshing. Yeah, I guess I could play both DuckTales and Little Nemo sometime. It will be a nice change from Mario. That's all I've been playing the last few weeks. I guess sometimes I just get in these moods where I just want to play the same thing. Like we did Mega Man month, and I guess you could say January was Mario month. But for the next game I'll play here, I have something in mind, an idea that my girlfriend gave me. I'll play something on Nintendo 64, but I won't spoil it. It will be a surprise. I just have to make sure I can record it properly and that everything works, so I can't make any promises until it actually happens. I'll do everything I can to make it work. If I could make Mega Man 64 work, I should be able to make that game work just fine. Oh, that jump. As a kid, that jump always screwed me over. I always tried to make it to that small little platform there. But you actually don't need to. You just skip it. Don't bother with it. It's more trouble than it's worth. You'll probably just end up falling in that pit to your doom. Okay, I'll show you where the warp to World 8 is, but we won't use it. It's over here. You need to make sure to break this and make it up that vine. Then you can choose between World 6, 7, or 8. It's the best way to finish the game quickly. Oh no! Messed up my jump. Maybe I should have gone above. Oh well, we'll be fine. Just make sure you don't go above and try to find the warp zone like you did in 1-2 in this world, because it only takes you to World 5. It's not the most effective warp zone. Basically, you end up skipping just 2 stages. Alright, we're back in business with a fire flower. Also, I recommend just jumping down here if you want to reach that pipe. If you try to make it from the top pipe, you'll hit your head on the ceiling and fall down that pit. I'm trying to remember what 4-3 is. What was that again? Another... Oh, okay. This is fine. I was afraid it was a stage with these annoying flying Cheep. For some reason, I always end up having the most terrible timing for my jumps in these levels, and I always lose my power-ups. So that's a relief. Oh dear, that's a problem. Okay. Thinking back on my memories of Mario 1 reminded me of something else. I'll show you once we make it to the end of the level what I mean. I'm not sure if you guys will see it or if it's just me being crazy. It's most likely option B. Oh, there's no staircase here? I guess I won't be able to show you now. Next time we find a staircase at the end of the level, I'll show you what I mean. And then you will all agree that I am crazy. Which is fine. I own it. Oh, this is one of these endless looping castles. You have to find the proper path. If you're playing this on NES, there's no jingle to tell you that you've chosen the right path. But if you play it on Game Boy Color, it actually gives you a little successful jingle when you choose the right one. So, you start with the top path, and then I think you make it to the bottom? Pretty sure it is. It's a good sign that we saw the fireball, that means we got it. And there you go! That was 4-4. We'll continue this in episode 2. So until next time everyone, I wish you all a good night. And thanks for watching!